Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty plains as James Hoffman squinted through his binoculars. His 3 golden retrievers, Max, the wise leader, Buddy, the loyal protector, and Luna, the playful youngster, wandered ahead, their golden coats shimmering in the desert heat. As the wildlife photographer followed his companions deeper into the canyon, he had no idea that this ordinary expedition would change their lives forever. A piercing sound cut through the desert silence. Not quite a roar, not quite a cry. Max's ears perked up instantly. Before James could react, all 3 dogs bolted toward the source, disappearing behind a large rock formation. Then, silence. James called out, his voice echoing off the canyon walls. No response. His heart raced as he scrambled over the rocks, fearing the worst. What he found on the other side defied explanation. His 3 golden retrievers, trained hunting dogs who should have been barking wildly, were huddled in a protective circle, their bodies forming a living shield around a tiny, trembling creature. A lion cub, no more than 3 weeks old, lay weak and bleeding, its small golden body almost lost among the desert sand. Nearby, fresh tire tracks told a story of poachers, and a trail of blood suggested the cub's mother had been wounded or killed. James reached for his phone to call wildlife services when a haunting sound froze him in place. The unmistakable roar of an adult lion, not far away. The 3 Goldens' fur stood on end, but remarkably, they tightened their circle around the cub rather than fleeing. Max, the oldest, locked eyes with James, his gaze saying what words couldn't. "We're not leaving this cub behind." As a former ranger at the nearby national park, James knew the gravity of interfering with wildlife. Yet he also recognized the work of the notorious Sanderson gang, poachers who had been targeting the small, endangered population of Arizona desert lions. These rare cats, smaller than their African cousins, had been pushed to the brink of extinction. James's wife, Sarah, ran the local wildlife rehabilitation center. If anyone could help, she could. The roar came again, closer this time. James had seconds to decide. As he reached for the cub, Max growled, not at James, but at something behind him. James turned slowly to find himself staring into the amber eyes of an adult female lion, blood matting her shoulder, her teeth bared in desperation. She was the cub's mother, wounded but very much alive. In that moment, James made a decision that defied all his training. Instead of retreating, he slowly reached into his pack and pulled out his emergency medical kit. Speaking in low, soothing tones, he explained his intentions to the wounded mother, an act of either bravery or madness. The 3 Goldens, reading the situation with uncanny intelligence, formed a line between James and the lioness, not threatening, but communicating in the ancient language of canines to predators. "We mean no harm." A shot rang out, echoing through the canyon. The lioness flinched, her eyes wild with fear. Poachers, returning to finish what they started. James grabbed the cub, whistled to his dogs, and with a last look at the wounded mother, mouthed 2 words, "Find us." Then he ran, the 3 Goldens leading the way through hidden paths in the canyon that few humans knew existed. Sarah's face drained of color when James burst into the rehabilitation center with a lion cub cradled in his arms and a story that sounded like pure fiction. "James, do you understand what you've done?" she whispered, already examining the dehydrated cub. "If the poachers tracked you here, if Fish and Wildlife discovers we have an endangered species without permits..." Max interrupted with a bark and moved to the window, his posture rigid. Outside, dust clouds rose from approaching vehicles. The center's security cameras revealed two pickup trucks with blacked-out windows, the Sanderson gang's signature vehicles. How had they found them so quickly? Then Sarah spotted it, a tiny, blinking light on the cub's ear. "It's tagged," she gasped. "The poachers aren't tracking the mother, they're tracking the cub to find the whole pride." As James's blood ran cold, Buddy began pouring frantically at the floor vent, revealing a hidden basement that Sarah had never mentioned. "There are things about my past I haven't told you," Sarah admitted as they descended into a fully equipped underground medical facility. The sophisticated setup rivaled any zoo hospital. "I worked with an international anti-poaching task force before we met. This safe house was established years ago." While she treated the cub's injuries and removed the tracker, James watched the security feeds in disbelief as federal agents suddenly appeared, surrounding the poachers' vehicles. A familiar face appeared on the security screen. Park Ranger Martinez, James's former supervisor and friend, but something was wrong. Martinez was directing the agents away from the center, pointing toward the canyon. As Sarah's phone rang, with Martinez's name on the display, Luna began growling at the image on screen, something she had never done before. James silenced the call as a chilling realization dawned. Martinez was working with the poachers. Days turned into weeks as the cub, now named Savannah, grew stronger under Sarah's expert care. The three golden retrievers never left her side, taking turns keeping watch, cleaning her, and even attempting to teach her to play fetch, a sight that would have been comical if their situation wasn't so dire. Most remarkable was how Savannah began mimicking the dog's behaviors, coming when called, understanding basic commands, and displaying a dog-like loyalty completely foreign to wild lions. The moment of truth came when Sarah detected movement on the perimeter sensors. James rushed to the monitors, expecting to see Martinez or the poachers. Instead, he found himself staring at the impossible. The wounded mother lioness, healed but thin, standing just outside their property line. More incredibly, she wasn't alone. 3 more adult desert lions waited in the shadows behind her. They had tracked their cub across 30 miles of harsh desert, following a scent that should have been impossible to maintain. "We can't keep her," Sarah whispered, watching Savannah sleep surrounded by her golden guardians. "She belongs with her kind." Yet the thought of sending the cub back to danger tore at their hearts. The desert lion population had dwindled to fewer than 50 individuals, and with Martinez helping the poachers, the pride's chances of survival were grim. James studied the satellite imagery of the region, focusing on an abandoned wildlife sanctuary at the edge of federal land, a place that could be defended. A breaking news alert flashed on James's phone. Federal investigation uncovers major poaching operation in Arizona desert. Multiple arrests made. Relief flooded through him until he saw the final line. Park Ranger David Martinez, still at large, considered armed and dangerous. The dogs sensed the change in atmosphere immediately. Max moved to the window again, his posture indicating a visitor. On the security screen, they saw Martinez's truck approaching, dust billowing behind it. With minutes to prepare, James and Sarah executed their emergency protocol. The 3 golden retrievers and Savannah were secured in the underground facility while James positioned himself with his hunting rifle, and Sarah contacted her former anti-poaching colleagues, but Martinez surprised them. He emerged from his vehicle with his hands raised, his face streaked with tears. "I need your help," he called out. "They have my daughter." The Sanderson gang hadn't been working with Martinez. They'd been blackmailing him, using his teenage daughter as leverage. His seeming betrayal had been an elaborate act to keep her alive, while he gathered evidence against the poaching network. Now, With the main operation exposed, the remaining gang members had gone to ground in the same remote area where the lion pride was hidden. Martinez had come not to threaten, but to propose an alliance, one that would save both his daughter and the desert lions. Dawn broke over the canyon as an unlikely team assembled. James, Sarah, Martinez, 2 federal agents, and 3 golden retrievers who refused to be left behind. Savannah remained at the rehabilitation center, secured in the underground facility. Using thermal imaging drones, they located the poachers' hideout, an abandoned mining operation dangerously close to where the mother lioness and her pride had created a den. Martinez's daughter was being held in the main building, while armed guards patrolled the perimeter. As they finalized their rescue plan, their communication system suddenly crackled with an emergency alert from the rehabilitation center. The underground cameras showed the impossible. Savannah had somehow escaped her secure enclosure. Even more shocking was the security footage from the main entrance. The cub was walking purposefully into the desert, following the exact path that would lead to her mother and the poacher's hideout. She was heading straight into danger, driven by an instinct they hadn't anticipated.
Without hesitation, the 3 golden retrievers bolted after Savannah, ignoring James's commands for the first time in their lives. The rescue mission transformed into a desperate race against time. They had to reach Savannah before she revealed herself to the poachers, or before the territorial adult lions perceived her as a threat after her strange absence. Martinez's expression grew grim as he checked his weapon. "We move now, or we lose everything."
Half a mile from the hideout, they found Max, Buddy, and Luna, but no Savannah. The 3 dogs led them to a high ridge overlooking the poachers' camp. What they witnessed below defied explanation. Savannah had somehow reunited with her mother undetected. More incredibly, the entire pride was slowly, methodically encircling the camp, displaying a level of coordinated hunting behavior rarely documented in the wild. The desert lions were planning their own rescue mission. As federal snipers took position and Martinez moved toward the building where his daughter was held, the golden retrievers broke away again, sprinting toward the lion pride. James watched in horror, certain his beloved dogs were running to their deaths. Instead, the unbelievable occurred. The lions accepted their presence. Max approached the mother lioness directly, and some form of communication passed between predator and canine. 2 species that should have been mortal enemies were now allies against a common threat. Without hesitation, the 3 golden retrievers bolted after Savannah, ignoring James's commands for the first time in their lives. The rescue mission transformed into a desperate race against time. They had to reach Savannah before she revealed herself to the poachers or before the territorial adult lions perceived her as a threat after her strange absence. Martinez's expression grew grim as he checked his weapon. "We move now, or we lose everything." A shot rang out. One of the poachers had spotted the federal agents. As gunfire erupted, Martinez's daughter screamed from inside the building. The lions reacted instantly, but not as wild animals. Their attack was coordinated, focused on the armed poachers while avoiding Martinez as he raced toward his daughter. The golden retrievers moved in perfect sync with the lions, herding, distracting, creating paths of escape. Sarah grabbed James's arm, pointing to the incredible scene. They're working together. The dogs taught the lions to collaborate. In the aftermath, as federal agents secured the last of the poachers and Martinez embraced his rescued daughter, wildlife experts and biologists descended on the scene, drawn by reports of behavior that challenged everything known about interspecies cooperation. The desert lions had not only coordinated with each other, unusual enough for typically solitary hunters, but had somehow formed a working relationship with domestic dogs. And at the center of it all was Savannah, moving comfortably between both worlds. In the aftermath, as federal agents secured the last of the poachers and Martinez embraced his rescued daughter, wildlife experts and biologists descended on the scene, drawn by reports of behavior that challenged everything known about interspecies cooperation. The desert lions had not only coordinated with each other, unusual enough for typically solitary hunters, but had somehow formed a working relationship with domestic dogs. And at the center of it all was Savannah, moving comfortably between both worlds. 6 months later, James reviewed the footage from the camera traps positioned throughout the newly established desert lion protected territory. The most remarkable images showed Savannah, now adolescent, leading younger cubs through training exercises that mimicked both lion hunting techniques and, astonishingly, retriever behaviors. The protected area had become a living laboratory where Sarah now worked full-time, documenting what scientists were calling cross-species cultural transmission. Then the perimeter alarm sounded. Someone had breached the outer fence. The intruder was a young filmmaker whose documentary on the desert lions had brought international attention and funding to the conservation effort. But she hadn't come alone. With her was a wildlife geneticist who had made a stunning discovery. The desert lions carried a genetic marker previously only found in ancient canids, suggesting that this rare population had evolved through a unique evolutionary history that predisposed them to canine interaction. This wasn't just an isolated case of unusual behavior, it was the rediscovery of a biological connection lost to time. As the research team reviewed their findings, Max suddenly raised his head, ears alert. The other two retrievers followed suit, moving to the window with purpose. Outside, standing at the edge of the observation area, was the mother lioness, and beside her, a massive male lion never before seen in their territory. The male's mane was unusually full for a desert lion, his bearing regal and confident. Most shocking was the scar across his face, identical to one documented on a lion thought to have been killed by poachers 3 years earlier. He had survived, gone into hiding, and returned now that the territory was safe. 3 years later, the desert lion protected territory had expanded to cover over 50,000 acres. The pride had grown to 23 lions, their unique behaviors passed down through generations. The 3 golden retrievers, now elderly but still vital, had become legends among conservation circles. Researchers from around the world came to study what they called the golden effect, how 3 domestic dogs had helped reshape the destiny of an endangered species through behavioral adaptation rather than forced human intervention. During a routine patrol, James witnessed something that stopped him in his tracks. A young lion cub had wandered too close to a steep ravine edge. Before he could react, Luna, the youngest and still most playful of his retrievers, rushed forward. Instead of scolding or herding the cub to safety as she usually would, Luna stopped and barked twice in a specific pattern. The cub immediately responded with a perfect retriever sit posture, backing away from danger. The lions weren't just tolerating the dogs, they had developed their own interspecies language. On a crisp autumn morning, the unavoidable finally happened. Max, the oldest retriever and the first to approach the wounded lioness years ago, passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 15. James prepared a burial site at Max's favorite overlook point. As he and Sarah carried the wrapped body to its final resting place, they found themselves surrounded. The entire lion pride had gathered, forming a circle around the burial site. Leading them was Savannah, now a majestic adult lioness and second in command of the pride. What happened next was witnessed by 23 researchers and captured on multiple cameras, yet many still refused to believe it. As Max was laid to rest, each lion approached one by one, making a sound never before documented in feline vocalizations, a sound that approximated a mournful howl, a behavior exclusive to canids. Savannah remained at the grave long after the others departed, her posture a mirror image of how Max used to sit, watching over the territory. Guardianship passed from one species to another. 10 years after finding Savannah, James approached the observation post for his final shift before retirement. Sarah had already stepped back from daily operations, focusing on writing the definitive text on interspecies communication. Their work was done. The next generation of conservationists would carry on. As he raised his binoculars for one last survey, movement caught his eye. A small pack of wild dogs cautiously approaching the lion territory. Instead of conflict, a young lion led by Savannah approached the pack. History was about to repeat itself, but this time entirely through nature's choice.